In my upcoming killer chest workout, we're going to be doing some really heavy weights, and it's important that you be able to do this safely. So let's look at some ways that you can spot yourself while doing these exercises. Now there's two issues with spotting. The first is getting the weight up into position without hurting yourself. And the second is actually doing the exercise without injuring yourself. Let's look at avoiding injury first. The shoulder is a really fragile joint, and we don't want to injure it while we're doing these chest exercises. To avoid injury, we need to limit the range of motion of the shoulder. And let's talk about this. Okay, so here's the plane of the body. It goes through the shoulders and the hips. When your elbows are out here in front of the plane of the body, your shoulder is stable and strong. However, when your elbows go behind the plane of your body like this, your shoulder is unstable and you're really susceptible to injury. So especially with flies, you don't want your elbows back there because your shoulder could dislocate and that's not good. Okay, I might as well address this now because I know someone's going to bring it up. You're going to hear many people say that you have to do the full range of motion when you're doing chest to get the benefit of it. Well, maybe you get a 5% better workout by letting your elbows go way back and get a stretch, but you're much more likely to get injured. And let me ask you this. If you have to have shoulder surgery, how much do you think it's going to set your working out back? So you need to decide if you think it's worth that extra 5% to risk getting injured and have surgery. So I would suggest you keep your elbows in front of the plane of your body. So we'll be always stopping right there. If we're doing flies, if we're doing dumbbell press, we'll be stopping there. Alles klar? The first thing we want to avoid, unless we have two spotters or a self-spotting rig, is the bench. Doing dumbbell presses or flies on a bench like this when you're alone is really dangerous. Here's why. If you're on this bench, you have a dumbbell in each hand. So let's say you have a twinge of pain in your shoulder. What's going to happen? You have no option. If you let it down to the ground, you're going to dislocate your shoulder, and by the time you let it roll off your hand, the damage is going to be done. So this is a really bad thing to do. The other problem is, notice you can drop your elbows really low, and there's no natural stopping point when your elbows are behind the plane of the body. So the bench doesn't let you limit the range of motion, and if you get into trouble, you're going to get injured, there's no question. So we're going to avoid the bench unless we have two spotters or a self-spotting rig. Bye-bye, bench. Okay, a safer way to do dumbbell presses and dumbbell flies is just on the floor. Now look what's going to happen here. Our elbows are going to naturally stop when we get to the plane of our body. So we can do dumbbell presses up like this, and our range of motion will be limited. Plus, if we get into trouble, all we have to do is let the dumbbells crash to the floor. And granted, mom's not going to be happy when she hears that racket, but it's much better than having shoulder surgery. Same with flies. When your elbows get to the plane, they'll stop. So it's a way to self-spot yourself. Now let's look at the second issue, which is how to get the heavy weights into position. Now, granted, these are not heavy weights. I'm just going to illustrate. What a lot of people do is they use a fluid motion to help lift the heavy weights up, and they use their knees to kick the weight up. So what they would do is put the weight on their knees like this, and then what they do is kick them up one at a time, and then get them in position from there. Now, if you do those right, it's fine, but it's very easy to screw those up. and really stress out your forearm or elbow while you're doing that. And the last thing I want to do is get injured while I'm getting ready to do an exercise. So I would recommend you not do that unless you're really good at it. Let's look at two other ways that you can get the weight safely into position. This first method I call the book method. What we're going to do is take a stack of large books, and they need to be large so that the weights don't roll off, and we're going to set the dumbbells on top of them. And this is going to hold the dumbbells up in position so we can easily get started. So all we need to do is lay down between the stack of books, and the weights are almost in the perfect position. All we have to do is grab them and roll them into position, and we can start working out. Now it's important to use big flat books for this so the weights don't roll off. Paperbacks just won't work. You need something that's really big and broad, like an encyclopedia. And when you put the weights on them, the books even cup a little bit so that the weight sinks in and it won't roll off. Now you'll notice the pillow that I used to put under my elbow, and that serves two purposes. First, when you're getting the weight up in position, it helps you do it without hurting your elbow. But most importantly, what it's going to let you do, when you're done with the exercise and can't possibly do another half rep, you can let the weight crash down on the pillow without destroying your floor or disturbing the neighbors underneath you. So the pillow is really important. And don't worry when you let the weights come crashing down. You'll probably knock the stack of encyclopedias over. It's no big deal.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
The second approach is not practical for most people. It's my self-spotting rig. You can check out my video on this. The advantage of this rig is that you can put the weights at any height above the ground in any position, so you can safely use the bench for inclines and declines. The self-spotting rig is basically adjustable cables that hold the dumbbell at any starting position, but they don't get in the way during the exercise. If you're working out chest at home, it's really important to do it safely. If you're using a bench, get two spotters or use a spotting rig, otherwise it's too dangerous. If you have to work out alone, do the chest exercises on the floor as I've shown here. If you're using really heavy weight, like I'm going to be using in the upcoming Advanced Killer Chest workout, it's imperative that you find a way to do these exercises safely.